I am the rock of the eternal shore. Crash against me and be broken.
Dude, I just need a name for the order.
Oh, and Summoner.
You know what? I'm just gonna put Brad. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. Today, we're taking a look at the all-new Marvel Legends retro card Apocalypse. Starting off with the packaging, and not only is it a retro card, but it's one of the extra large ones. Just for comparison, here he is with Rogue. It's also one of those fun purple ones signifying a villain, and if that wasn't clear, you can see he comes with Ancient Evil. Really great picture of him on the side, and the nice big product shot or digital render on the back. To be frank, I honestly can't tell.
Look upon the future and tremble! He is Apocalypse, the world's most powerful mutant, and from the ashes of our world, he'll build a better one.
Honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised that they included that line from the movie. And of course, that first line from the cartoon. I am, however, unpleasantly surprised at just how useless this diagram is. Usually, they at least make an effort to show the interchangeable parts or something. Not worth docking points over or anything, I just find it amusing. And on the subject of points, Apocalypse gets one whole one. Moving on to presentation, and Apocalypse stands at a staggering 8 inches. And since it's an important part of his look, I'll be plugging his hoses in now. They pour it in back here, and in the forearm. How you feel about this figure will largely depend on how you feel about the 1990s animated series. I say that because this look is taken from there right down to the blue and purple color scheme, and while I'm sure a lot of fans would have preferred a simple repack of the Build-A-Figure, this does add a very distinct look. I don't have the original Build-A-Figure, but I imagine the arms are the same. I know the hands are. The legs definitely are, but the torso is completely new. One thing about the Build-A-Figure I did like is the marbleized finish. By contrast, I will say this is kind of flat. Again, however, and I can't stress this enough, that's on purpose because this is trying to be the animated series. And honestly, I'm just glad it doesn't have cell shading. Because of the reuse, the hands aren't entirely accurate to what we saw in the cartoon, neither are the boots, but it all comes together just fine. From the top we have the high collar. That's to protect the base of his neck, which is his only vulnerable spot, though I can't help but wonder if anyone ever tried kicking him here. Moving on down though, I am disappointed to say that they did not continue the ridges underneath the ab crunch. More like B+. As I've already said, how you feel about this figure will largely depend on how you feel about the cartoon, which is to say how you feel about Apocalypse being quite so purple and flat. Given that the cartoon was my introduction to the character, I'm fine with it, and for presentation, I'm giving Apocalypse one whole point. Going into posability, and the thing I was the most curious about was how the hoses were going to impact articulation. Before we get there though, we have to start with the head. It's on a ball joint and a disc hinge, and Summoner can look up this far, which isn't bad, and so far down as to be comical. Dude, does he have a feed bag in there or something? Of course, because of the collar, you can't turn his head all the way around, but he can look side to side. Moving on down, he has swivel hinge shoulders that raise up this far. I'm pleasantly surprised to see the hose is still in place. Maybe I spoke too soon. Traveling down the arm, and he has bicep swivel and single jointed elbow. No swivel in there, but it's not really necessary because of the bicep. And then coming to the end of his arm, he has swivel hinge wrists. Shifting to the torso, and I've already mentioned he has an ab crunch. He can arch back this far, which is pretty decent, and he can hunch forward this far, which is why I always prefer an ab crunch to a diaphragm joint. He does have a waist cut, but do keep that belt in mind. Below the waist, Apocalypse has ball jointed hips. They kick forward 90 degrees and do a near perfect split. And just because I've been binging old Glenn Webb videos, here's how far he can split with both feet on the ground. Traveling down the leg, and Apocalypse has a thigh cut, very crunchy double jointed knees, and something a lot closer to a McFarlane ankle ball that can swivel, hinge, and pivot. Bulkier characters like this are always a challenge, but I'm happy to say that Apocalypse is pretty well articulated. In fact, with the exception of double jointed elbows, he has pretty much every point of articulation you would want or expect. Generally speaking, I'm not a fan of ankle balls, but I think in this case it does work. And for posability, I'm giving Apocalypse one whole point. Before we continue, if you like this video, do me a favor and give it a like. I put a lot of love into my videos, and your likes really do help more people to see them. Moving on to playability, and in addition to this grimacing head that the original figure came with, he also has a really nice static one. I love the pursed lips and the shading, and And of course, the red eyes really pop. One really nice thing about him coming with 2 heads, you can use the extra one on your Build-A-Figure in case you missed out the first time around. Or of course, you could give him that more static look. The blue of his headpiece is so dark I kinda think it was on purpose, especially since it doesn't exactly match this. In addition to these open hands he came pre-packed with, he also comes with these fists. We've seen these a few times, most recently with the Colossus Build-A-Figure. And if all that wasn't enough, he also comes with this arm cannon. For those of you who don't know, Apocalypse is the world's oldest mutant and has complete control over every molecule of his body. This gives him the ability to turn his body into weapons. Just unplug the hose, slide the gauntlet off, pop the gauntlet in, and replace the hose. You can't replace good hose. What makes this cool is that he did actually have this arm cannon on the cartoon, and what makes it extra cool is that they even included these blast effects. Just keep an eye on the tiny ones, they're pretty much perfect carpet goblin food. But playability is more than just sticking it to people who sell Apocalypse's head for more than this entire figure. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. For just some of the Apocalypse figures that brought us here, and here we have the second one that Toy Biz ever made. Honestly, all I really want in an Apocalypse figure is this, just scaled up with better articulation. The small head with the broad jaw, the linebacker shoulders and narrow waist, the comically large wrestling belt. Seriously, why is this so hard? Anyway, next up, and here we have the Age of Apocalypse version from Toy Biz. He comes complete with his giant gorilla arms. Here we have this really cool Apocalypse Rising figure from the Toy Biz Onslaught series. And whatever the hell this is. Strictly speaking, it's called Future Apocalypse from the Missile Flyer series, but I think they should have called it Shark Jumper. Here he is with the unmatched Toy Biz Build-A-Figure version, which is so colossal I had to back away out of my viewing area. And here he is with what I have of the Hasbro Build-A-Figure. And for one last Apocalypse, here he is with the Hasbro Age of Apocalypse Deluxe. You can tell he's deluxe because he comes with lettuce and tomato. Moving on to the X-Men, and since this is the animated series version, I'm going to start with that roster of the team. First up, and here we have Xavier, and then from the Love Triangle 3-pack, here we have Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Wolverine. And then for a few fellow retro cards, and here we have the Retro Card Storm, Retro Card Gambit, and Retro Card Rogue. And then rounding out the animated team, and here we have Beast and Jubilee, whose glasses I'm sure are somewhere. That said, for some other heroes, and here we have Psylocke. She of course played a very important role in a story arc on the animated series with Apocalypse, and also in the X-Men Apocalypse movie. Here we have Nightcrawler, my favorite X-Men, and Colossus, another one of my favorites. The most important hero comparison, of course, is Archangel. Warren Worthington III started out as the beautiful feathery winged angel, one of the original 5 X-Men, only to be transformed into Apocalypse's Angel of Death. Granted, Cable and Bishop are important too, but I don't have them. For some other important 90s era X-Men villains, and here we have Magneto, here we have Mystique, Emma Frost, the White Queen, Mr. Sinister, Lady Deathstrike, Cyber, Omega Red. Seriously, what was it with the 90s and hoses? The 80 Years 2-pack Juggernaut. I picked this one because the color scheme was more like the cartoon, the Marvel Select Sabretooth, and the Marvel Legends Onslaught Build-A-Figure. For a relative scale comparison, here's Apocalypse with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. The great thing about this figure is that he's perfect for your animated X-Men display, but you could also use him on your comic book shelf if you don't have the Build-A-Figure. And if you do have the Build-A-Figure but were never able to finish him, the alternate head is an affordable way of being able to do that. For playability, I'm giving Apocalypse one whole point. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. I picked up Apocalypse on Amazon for $38.99. Given the size of him and everything he comes with, as well as the fact that the whole figure is cheaper than just the Build-A-Figure's head on the aftermarket, $38 for this Apocalypse is hardly the end of the world. For price, I'm giving Apocalypse one whole point for a grand total of 5 out of 5. For more 90s X-Men, check out this video on Maggot or this older one on Lady Deathstrike. Are you picking this up? Do you have the BAF? Are you holding out for Marvel Select? Sound off in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.